You're listening to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, Accelerated Edition number 20. Today, I speak with yoga instructor, grief coach, and owner of Jean's Apothecary, Casey Jean Miller, on herbal and natural remedies for adversity and grief. Welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, Accelerated Edition, where we gain inspiration and motivation from others who share their stories of renewing hope and discovering purpose in any circumstance. I am Christina Reisinger, and today you will be encouraged by another tremendously inspirational topic that will embolden you to release your fear, begin taking small steps forward, and move into your God-given purpose to live and serve in this life. Join me for today's story. Hello, Casey Jean. Welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so glad that you're here. So today we are going to talk about the apothecary, herbal, and natural remedies for things, with all things adversity and grief and things like that. But before that, I would love for you to introduce yourself and to the audience and tell them what you do and why we're here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Casey Jean, and several years ago, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. It's ulcerative colitis, and it was affecting every aspect of my life. And so I first started getting into herbalism and yoga and mindfulness, really seeking ways to take care of my body. And as that transpired, I realized that all of those same tools and techniques could also apply to my grief and all of the challenges really that life brings. And so I now work as a therapeutic yoga teacher, grief coach, and herbalist to support others as they're on their journey.
That's lovely. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit about your story now? For those of you listening now, Casey Jean is part of our 2020 Grief Symposium, so she will be speaking on that, and we actually have already done our interview, which was wonderful, but today we're here to talk about this natural herbal healing, so to speak, and ways to cope through things. So if you want to catch more of Casey Jean, you can join us in October. But right now, I would like for you to just to touch on your story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, certainly. So when I was just 10 days old, I lost my twin sister, Lacey Jean, to a congenital heart defect. And that's made a very lasting impression going through life, mourning and losing her, and honestly coming to the realization in these past few years that I'm a woman that's been grieving my whole life. And that's honestly a really big pill to swallow. And as I continued to address that and work to transform that loss to be able to connect with love and joy and not just the heartache and the sorrow, life hit again. And I lost my dad very suddenly in a motorcycle accident. And even in the really deep pit of grief as that struck, I could still feel this pull that was calling me forward to do this type of work and to lead support in others. But it's been a really slow and gentle process because I have to tend to my grief and all that comes with it. And so this work is something that's very, very dear and close to me, very heartfelt.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you can use herbal remedies to, I'm guessing, help make you or help you move forward from like these emotions like anxiety and depression and stress and different things like that. As I'm assuming, I know you said that you looked into this because of an autoimmune disease. However, if I understand autoimmune a little bit, it's triggered by a lot of stressors. Is that correct?
It is. And so it runs very parallel with grief.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized as I started to do more research and diving into it that a lot of the same principles apply. And it's really rooted in our nervous system. So I guess that's honestly a place where we can start. So our nervous system is our link to our environment, right? So our nervous system has three basic functions: to receive, to interpret, to respond. And so, especially in our culture, it's very our physical body and our physical environment. And so, when we're looking at grief or any stress, any challenge, that's typically what we're consumed in and comprised of. And so we have our five basic senses to experience life. So grief affects our whole body, our physical body, and our mind. A few ways that can show up. And of course, this is just naming a few: as heartbreak and sorrow, denial, anger, guilt, shame, physical discomfort and pain. That might look like headaches or digestive upset or insomnia, racing thoughts. And while no one needs to move on, we can use plants as allies to support and soothe ourselves in the process. And I want to add that this goes not just for us as grieving individuals, but even those who are in the process of dying, the caregivers, and the family members and loved ones. We all need support during these times.
Mm-hmm.
And so herbalism, or herbal medicine, if you will, provides manageable tools to ease physical symptoms of grief, to process the loss, to calm the mind, emotional regulation, foster the connection and love that we have with our loved ones, and to return the body to a state of balance while honoring grief. Herbal medicine has been around as long as the world and civilization has been around, right? It's nothing new. And it's also where our conventional or Western medicine is derived from, now the synthetic versions and derivatives. And now, whereas conventional medicine often either mutes bodily functions or in systems or even deadens the response, the wonderful thing about herbal medicine is it works in harmony with our body to either strengthen, to soothe, support in some way. It works directly with our body rather than masking a symptom like makeup on a pimple, if you will. Grief, stress, challenges, they affect both our physical and emotional body. If we're looking at the physical body, the body becomes depleted during times of stress. It goes into overdrive. And our adrenals, the little organs that take care of our stress response, and even our immune system really suffers. And then that gives the opportunity for little illnesses and ailments to come up, even if it's just a common cold or an ear infection or random rash. It shows up, the mind and the body, they're connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Emotionally, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to even say that a lot of times we don't recognize that they're connected. You say that they're connected, but I know that I went a couple of years not understanding that the physical things that were going on in my body were partially derivative of the grief that I suffered and the the ability to cope with what was going on in my life. So that's interesting that you bring that up, because it's important to understand that they are linked. It's not always the same thing. I mean, definitely there is a place for medicine, and you definitely should go get checked out. We are not claiming that you stay home and not do anything about it. If you are sick, you go to the doctor and you look for whatever, but they are definitely connected, the mind, body, and soul. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also important to note how it takes practice to become aware of that connection, to notice. If we even just break it down and think about our breath or our heart rate and how those are connected, right? During times of stress, anxiety, our breathing is typically pretty shallow and rapid, and our heart rate might be really accelerated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's working with your nervous system, and it's also sending this response to your immune system as well. That's the fight, fright, or freeze paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, honestly, first acknowledging and being able to make that awareness is step one.
Mm-hmm. It's super interesting that you can listen to your body and say, oh, well, I don't feel well physically, and you go in and you check things out, and then that anxiety from feeling physically ill makes things even worse mentally and emotionally. It's very cyclical. I remember, like I said, going to the doctor, having tests done, thinking something was really, truly wrong because of, and not finding anything that was wrong, and then having added anxiety from not finding the source of why I was feeling so terrible. And this was, just a year or two after my daughter passed away. So, no, I'm not grieving. I got my grief under control. I'm not depressed. Quit trying to give me depression medicine. This is something else. And then I, finally realized that it does have a lot to do, and it is interconnected. So I find that is something that we have to do. We have to take care of ourselves and do a lot of self-care, and be able, like you said, to have that recognition and know our bodies better.
Yeah, 100%. On that note, it feels really important to talk about the nervous system and its crucial role that it plays with our whole body, especially in this regard. So the nervous system is our link to the environment. It has three basic functions: to receive, to interpret, to respond. And in our culture, this is often limited to our physical body, physical being, and the physical environment that we live in. So then we have our 5 basic senses to experience our external world. And we have countless internal senses for our internal environment. There are about 12 billion and then some cells that make up our brain. And you can consider our brain like our central computer for the mind, which then works and communicates with the whole body. And so that alone makes the nervous system the most important part of our body. And then it in turn talks with the rest of our body. So if we even look at the sympathetic nervous system, which is where we typically reside just throughout all day, every day. Let me rephrase that. Our sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, or freeze. And there, our body is in react mode. It's reacting to stress. And in our culture, that tends to be where we live. We're fighting little fires and addressing all types of things. When we're in that place, we have really short neurons. Our system is going faster. The body speeds up. It tenses up. And the heart rate accelerates. We can access the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest or conscious relaxation, by things like meditation, breath work, and herbs. And when we're in that nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, our muscles relax, our heart rate slows down. And essentially, you could think of it as your nervous system sending little messages, little love notes to your body saying, it's okay, you can rest, you are safe. And so we can shift. And I think that's amazing that we can literally shift ourselves, our bodies, from the fight, flight, freeze to rest and digest, or conscious relaxation, however you want to put it. I do want to say that that doesn't mean that stress no longer exists or you might not feel a certain type of way, but it's your body's system. It's letting your body begin to be open to relaxing and nourishing.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at not specific herbs, but specific types of herbs. Nervines. Nervines support the nervous system by reducing anxiety and tension and stress. And they do this by either stimulating, strengthening, or soothing neural functions. So they work directly to support your nervous system. We break that down a little more. There's nerve tonics. Those feed and tone and rehabilitate, strengthen the nervous system. They fortify nerve tissue. They're high in calcium, B vitamins, magnesium. These are herbs like oat straw and oat tops, chamomile, valerian, lemon balm. Then we have our nerve sedatives, which are mild. They relax the nervous system, reducing stress, tension, pain, discomfort, and they also help promote sleep. Unlike conventional medicine, they don't deaden the nerve or mute it. They're soothing and nourishing the nerves and even the muscle tissue. And these are herbs like lavender, skullcap, valerian, passion flower, catnip, nettle. What's cool is some of them overlap. They fall into multiple categories. Mm-hmm. These are the two herbs that I work with the most because they're so helpful, and essentially they're like a hug to the nervous system. We can look even further at ways to look at herbs, or how to use the herbs, I should say. My personal favorites are incorporating them in our daily life in ways that are enjoyable. One, because that's going to be the most literal, enjoyable way to do that, rather than taking a supplement. We could create a soothing ritual of having a mug of herbal tea daily, or using an aromatherapy blend to uplift or support or calm, whatever it is that we need. There's so many ways that can be done, so that they're incorporated in our daily life. They're not just things that we go to once we're at our limit, but we can incorporate those into daily practices and even routines that we already have in place, because it can be hard to add new routines and things to our lives. Do you have any questions so far?
I do. So one thing that you kind of touched on, and I'm going to maybe throw you a curve here because we didn't speak about this, but a lot of times, and this is big right now, a lot of times when we are stressed, it causes a lot of inflammation in the gut. And I know from my own personal experience and those of others I know and friends and family members that anxiety, especially, and when you're stressed out about something, can cause a lot of GI distress. I used to I directed musical theater for when I taught school, and the day like of the show, I was just a nervous wreck, and I remember thinking that I wish that I could feel a little bit better, ease the anxiety. So the herbs can actually help soothe the stomach so that you didn't have as much GI distress, or is it just like an overall calming so that the GI distress doesn't come? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, and so it's both.
Okay.
There are herbs that are specifically going to support your digestive system, its function, soothing inflammation, helping to restore the lining of your gut.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a natural just system. And by calming the nervous system, it's then calming and soothing to your immune system. And most of your immune system is in your gut. So they all just sort of work hand in hand. When you do one, you're able to then support your body in the other.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit about like using herbs as maintenance? I'm sure that there's some things that you probably can incorporate, like you said, the herbal teas or whatever, in a daily lifestyle, where you have these things in your lifestyle and practice those so that it helps kind of stand in front of all of the anxiety and the stress that's to come. But also, if you are not already doing this and you have some circumstances that come up that are very stressful, can you talk about the differences and how you should approach both of those situations?
Yeah, honestly, they're pretty similar. I wouldn't change a ton. Rather, if it's something that you're just starting, to start slowly, to also one, just notice how your body is reacting, whether it's a cup of tea or aromatherapy blend or whatever it is that you choose to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's going to depend on your exact situation, whether it's how you feel or what you have going on. I think that depending on how it is that you're feeling day to day, or there's this circumstance that comes up that's going to inform the path that you take. But for instance, if we're looking at like your musical background and the stress that would come with that, what I would then recommend is, so you've noticed that you're on edge that day and you're feeling a little fried, nervous, and there's probably some digestive upset during that process. So then first we've got the awareness. So great, now we can take care. You could have a cup of tea to soothe that nausea. Ginger, lemongrass, peppermint are all really soothing to nausea, but also are going to support your digestive system. I have a tea blend named Trust Your Gut, and it's got all of those herbs in it, as well as nettle, which is a nervine, so it's going to soothe your nervous system at the same time. Maybe you don't want a mug of tea or don't have time. You could use essential oils or aromatherapy to soothe whatever ailment. And in this case, we're looking at nausea or feelings of stress. For nausea, you might rub some peppermint on your belly, or even just smell a little bit from a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
To soothe those anxious feelings, you might call on lavender or something soothing, even just something that you find pleasant to smell, like rose. That's going to also help calm your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
Definitely, definitely. So I would like for you to talk a little bit about, in my experience, going to a medical professional and asking, like, for people with underlying conditions. So I'll throw another one at you. I have a underlying heart condition. So going to a medical professional and saying, hey, I want to use more natural things. And is this safe, kind of a thing. Is there any way that, since they work in medicine, sometimes they don't want to say yes. I'm assuming it might be a liability thing, but and for those of you who are listening, who are our medical professionals, we love you and we're so thankful for you. But sometimes we just want to use things that are more natural. Some of us do, anyways, and for me in particular, I like to make sure it's safe because I never want to do anything that's going to mess with my heart. We've worked so hard to help keep me healthy. And, is there any way that there's like research you can do, or what would you tell that person? Because we certainly don't want to send them in a place where they could take something that's going to counteract the medication they're already taken or whatever that condition is that they have.
Yes, excellent point. And I want to piggyback on that of Western medicine, conventional medicine, it 100% has a place. And it's done huge things to transform our humanity. And that's amazing. And at the same time, our bodies are capable and just need support sometimes. And so there's nothing wrong of doing both. And I, as a person who has ulcerative colitis, I utilize both conventional and herbal support.
Okay.
A whole body holistic approach.
Okay.
And yeah, it's sometimes it feels like a double-edged sword, but there have been times where either or isn't enough by itself. If I'm just taking I've had infusions. Thankfully, I'm not on them anymore because that warped my body in all kinds of ways. But I would have infusions to suppress my overactive immune system. Yet at the same time, now my immune system needs support because it's not great to not have an immune system at all either. And so for most of the past 6 years, I've worked with having a GI and having a naturopathic doctor so that I can have both types of support. Now, do they like meet up and even talk? Nope. And it's taken a long time to really even have a GI that is open to herbal support. The first several I had, we clashed. It was ironic because he was a 60-year-old male with Crohn's disease, and he had never used any type of dietary support or trying anything out at all, and told me to take my pills and shut up.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it wasn't great. And at the same time, I want to listen to both. And so I think finding a team that works for you and knowing that you don't have to do it alone, and I don't recommend you doing it alone. So on one hand, having a doctor to tell me just to take my medicine and not being open, that didn't work for me. And so it took, honestly, a lot of dedication to finding a provider that was open to both sides, even if they didn't necessarily buy into it themselves. Okay. And so I recommend finding someone who's a good fit for you in kind of both fields. Mm-hmm. And especially if we're looking at essential oils. Mm-hmm. They have become so popular. Mm-hmm. And that's wonderful because they are really helpful tools of wellness. However, there's a lot being said about essential oils, and it's not always backed by science or research. Okay. And essential oils are extremely, extremely potent. For one very, very small bottle, it's often pounds pounds of herbs or flower or bark or whatever it is that are in these little vials. And so I really do recommend reaching out to essentially someone like myself, an herbalist or aromatherapist, a naturopathic doctor, before you just dive in.
Mm-hmm.
And know that sourcing matters. If you see something on a shelf at Walmart or Target and it's
Probably not your best
$5,
bet.
yeah, this could be a whole other conversation, but the
Definitely.
FDA doesn't regulate things like that. And so even if we're just talking about shampoo, it can say natural, or with aloe vera, and actually it might not be, or it's tiny percentage. And
Mm-hmm.
so doing your own research, I wish I could say checking labels was enough, but they also don't have to declare everything on a label. So not doing it alone, and if you do primarily kind of walk the path by yourself, to do your due diligence and do a lot of research so that you're I've heard horror stories like someone pouring essential oil directly in your ear, and that's something, yeah, you should never do.
Whoa. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
being informed, asking for support.
We just took a whiff of our lavender here because my girls and I both did, because we had a little bit of a thing prior to the interview. So I said, "Here, take a whiff of this, smell it," and they're like, "Okay." So
Yes.
if somebody is just starting out with herbs, and they say, "Hey, you know what, this sounds really interesting, it sounds like it might be for me, I am going to the doctor and being seen and doing the things that I need to medically, but I also would like to incorporate a more holistic, more natural way of wellness into my lifestyle, and I would love to have that for my kids because I don't want them to grow up with toxicity and just different things like that." What would your suggestion be to and how to start? Because this can be so overwhelming. I know that when I first began using essential oils, I went through a company, I ordered my box. It's beautiful, it's wrapped well, all the oils smell great, and they sat there for months because I didn't know what to do with them. I was afraid to use them because I didn't want to be that person that put them in your ear and, ended up having to go to the hospital, and the doctor looked at me like I was stupid. And I didn't want to be the person that accidentally did something wrong to my children. But I didn't know anything about it. And yes, I had a lot of support, but from people who this had been going on with like for years. And so it was just second nature to them. And when we speak to people, um, and they are already involved in something and in the second nature, it is very difficult sometimes for them to dumb it down so that we can understand it from ground, a ground perspective. So what would your suggestion be if somebody did want to start off like this? I mean, would you say maybe start with something simple like lavender for calming, and then what does that look like? I mean, obviously they have choice of teas and essential oils, and I think there are certain tonics, and I mean, can you talk about those?
Yeah, certainly. And you're right. And guess what? I was exactly as you. I got a box, there are all these oils, and I was like, this is wonderful. And I and I have no idea what to do with
Yeah.
them. So definitely starting small. You don't even need a whole box of oils to start, or have every herb in your cabinet to make teas, or all of those things. Starting really small. The few herbs and essential oils that I recommend always having would be peppermint. Peppermint tea you can find just about anywhere, and it does loads to support you. It supports your digestive system and its function, to also alleviate feelings of nausea or pain. It's also lends a hand to mental function. and it's a stimulant. And so not like coffee, but it can awaken,
Mm-hmm.
both in tea form and essential oil.
I'm going to hop in
Look like
here
you
for
have a
just a
thought.
second with peppermint. The interesting thing that I found, and you mentioned it's a stimulant, so a lot of times people will use it to wake up, and just think more clearly and things like that. For me, I figured out that it was a way to calm me, because that smell of the peppermint just really soothes my mind, I guess, my my emotions, my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Most herbs, however, whatever form we're looking at, in a dried form, fresh, and an essential oil, they're like Swiss Army knives. They have so many functions, and it's going to have a slight different reaction in everybody.
Mm.
There are many cases, like how we've talked about, the spike of essential oils, and so people buying them and then not exactly knowing what to do, maybe having a general idea. Oh, I know lavender is supposed to be calming, and so they put it on their child, and there have been many cases of, instead of lavender calming them down before bed, it exhilarates them, and they're now running around like they've had coffee. So so even though there's science behind it, our own unique body is going to have its own reaction as well, and that's definitely worth noting.
Yeah, definitely. There is actually a term for that, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I did some research years ago, because my children are very much like that. So my son, who is 9, has ADHD, and we noticed that medication that was supposed to help him sleep, like Benadryl, and I don't use a lot of medication, so I just want to state that right now. But when we did have to use something, instead of making him sleepy, he would get super hyper. I believe it was like Motrin or something years ago that we realized that when we gave him that particular medication, that he just was off the walls. And it was a really oddity at the time, and I didn't understand it, but it's a thing. So yeah, definitely making sure that we know how our bodies respond. And I'm sure that you would say that that starts with going slow, testing
Exactly.
the water, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah. Starting with tea before essential oils, because essential oils are so potent, is where I would recommend, especially if we're looking at kids. I can't remember the exact ratio, but it's something to the effect of 1 drop of peppermint essential oil is equivalent to 25, 30 cups of the tea.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're looking at really, really potent
Hmm.
vials.
Yeah. And it's important to know that, when, especially with your children, like you said, do your due diligence, do your research, because there are a lot of things. And I know this is your area of expertise, but I do know, because I have so many children, that it is important to know what you can and cannot use. And also, when using like an oil, you have to use a carrier oil for your kids, which just means, if for those of you who don't know, it just means use a coconut oil or almond oil or something and mix it so that it is less potent. But it's important to do that. I just wanted to add.
Yes,
So,
definitely. That's where I was going to go next. And even for adults, I don't recommend using them neat, whereas it's not diluted. So even just using a tiny bit, and go into your kitchen. You likely have, I would be confused if you don't have olive oil or some type of cooking oil. If it's safe for you to eat with, clearly it's safe for you to put on your body. And so using just a little bit, and you can find tools to store them in and make your own little diluted products if you want, or to just do it really simply, getting a measuring cup, getting out about a tablespoon of any type of oil that you have and putting, especially if we're looking at it as you're just starting, 1 drop if it's a child, 2 drops perhaps if it's an adult, in that little container, and then rubbing it on your belly if we're looking at digestive upset, or if you've got really sore shoulders, rubbing that on your neck and your back. Same for even just with stress. You could do the same thing with lavender. On that note, the few different ways, if we're looking at essential oils, how you can use them is, one, just simply smelling them right from the bottle. And that's the safest way. And you didn't even use any. It's still in your bottle. So smelling them, aroma, through your nose, of course, putting them on your body. We just touched on diluting them. You can also diffuse them. And so that's just with a neat little accessory, water, 1 to 2 drops of oil. And even with that, starting slow, it's diluting it into your home. And so typically there's a pretty big space. But even with that, sometimes we get carried away and want to put a bunch of drops in. But as you're first starting, just doing a few. For emotional support, my favorite way to use aromatherapy is saying that this is already diluted, perhaps in like a little roll-on ball, putting a little bit in your palm, rubbing your palms together, not as in like you're applying lotion, but just gently bringing your palms together, and then lift it up towards your face, your nose. So you're kind of like making a little inhaler and taking a few deep breaths and letting your hands go after you exhale. It's a really small practice, but it is so powerful. It has about the same effect as taking or participating in a 15-30 minute meditation. And that's something that you can do in the car line and you're picking your kids up from school, or even if you're out running an errand and something comes up. If we're really looking at grief and loss, things just kind of come up and not when we might expect it. So you can have aromatherapy in your bag and be able to pull on it for support, whether it's digestive, a headache, or something more to do with matters of the heart.
Awesome. So Casey Jean, when you have an apothecary, right? Is that like it's a store that has these things? Do you make them?
I do. So
can you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. So it's been about 4 years now. I started Jean's Apothecare. So it's a play on the word apothecary because it's all really rooted in care. And so I source from farmers both in the United States, but globally, for dried herbs and essential oils that are all organic and fair trade, which essentially just means that the farmers and their workers are all taken care of. And it's a good, fair trade. And so I make everything myself. It's taken a while to, one, learn the craft and learn the in and outs of different oils and herbs and how they react with our bodies. And so it's teas and bath soaks and aromatherapy blends that are already safely diluted and blended so that you don't have to even know exactly why each oil is in there, but know why you might use them. And body butters, salves, lip balms, all things to soothe both your body and your mind. Yeah.
I love that. That is amazing. So, Casey Jean, will you please tell the audience where they can find you, where they can find your products, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's jeansapothecare.com, and apothecare just has the E instead of Y, like apothecary. jeansapothecare.com, and there you can find my full store with teas, bath soaks, aromatherapy, you name it. also guided meditations and ways to work with me one-on-one, whether you're starting your herbal path and absolutely unsure where to start, or maybe you've been walking this and just realized you'd like someone's hand to hold. All of that can be found there.
Love that. Can they find you anywhere else? Are you on social media?
Yeah, same thing, Jean's Apothecary, Instagram or Facebook.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for being on Faith Breathed Hope. And for now, we ask that you continue to be blessed and bless others, and we will see you next time. Thank you. And I want to thank you for joining us on Faith Breathed Hope, where you gain inspiration and motivation to renew hope and discover purpose in any circumstance. Please like and share this podcast and give us a review on iTunes. Be blessed.